Welcome to this week's Wicked Cool project, the Muppets Christmas Carol, sponsored by the Folio Society. The Folio Society crafts books that are miniature works of art. Their labor of love on each book is one I can relate to. From one artist to another, thank you so much for your support. Check them out in the link in the description below. Now let's get making Gonzo and Rizzo. Happy holidays! The first thing you're going to need is a piece of high density foam to carve Gonzo's head out of. I just sketched an image of his head onto the foam for guidelines to where to start cutting. Every time I use a turkey carving knife, I think of the movie Idle Hands. I'm Leatherface! This knife is definitely a must when you're cutting through foam. Look at how it cuts through it so easily. Now take a pair of sharp scissors and start cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. It's a lot of cutting. You're going to start feeling like Edward Scissorhands at some point, and the foam's going to stick to everything and just be everywhere. Once you have your basic shape, it will be time to sand. You're going to need a belt sander, you're going to need a respirator, hearing, and eye protection. All of the trifecta of being safe. And remember kids, safety is sexy. There's actually a really good safety video on this from a puppet person that I will link in the description below. Please watch it if you're going to try to attempt this. And make sure that you gently rub the foam against the sander and don't use too much pressure or it will catch and ruin your piece. Like this one. Now that I got that out of my system, time to do some airbrushing. Now let's talk about fabric for a minute. I found this fabric which is really close to Gonzo's fur, but it needs to be matted more, so we're going to boil it. Yummy blue fur soup, my favorite. What you do is you boil the water, take it off the burner, put the fabric in, and let it soak for maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and then I let it air dry. And then you get this beautiful matted fur. Then you just glue the fur to his head. And what would Gonzo be without his iconic blue texturing on his nose? Now to add some pink for his lips. And I also added some more fur around his muzzle nose piece. Then I used a razor blade to cut slits into the foam where the eyeballs would sit and hot glued them down. I used ping pong balls for his eyes and cut the backs off so they would fit flush against the foam. Then for his eyelid, I cut this half circle shape and airbrushed it with some yellow paint, and then very carefully hot glued it into place. His eyelids actually overlap each other in an unsymmetrical way. Then I added some extra fur or just hot glued the fur down that was there to make his eyelids sit pretty. Now that his face is done, I can move on to his top hat, which I just made a quick pattern for. Taking some 3mm foam, I cut the pieces out and hot glued them together. And then I hot glued the fabric to the foam hat. When I did do the side fabric, I made sure to put like a cool embellishment because I knew it was going to be seen easily on the hat. I also made this ribbon piece to go around the brim of the hat. That way it covers all the cut fabric and messy looking parts. Same with the inside rim of the hat. I cut a ribbon and covered the messy glued pieces together. Now that his head and his hat are done, we can start on the body. I cut out a piece of foam until it looked like a good shape for his body. Now that I had his body, I could start working on his clothes. I started with his collar, then I pinned up his red coat, his vest, gave him a white undershirt, a bow tie neckerchief thingy, made him a scarf out of fabric, And voila, you have the most dapper, Gonzo looking zombie puppet ever. With arms! I did add pupils later cut from felt in my Cricut machine. Now on to making Rizzo. I did find a pattern for Rizzo on Etsy, which I will link in the description below. It was a sewing pattern, not a puppet pattern, but I figured this worked very well for this wreath. I even made the tail, which was really cute because you could put a wire and manipulate it. Then I cut out his mouth and made him a chin. His hands and his arms also have wires in them so you can pose him. Then I sewed him a vest and a coat. Made him a collar, a hat, and a scarf. Here he is, all done. For the floral of the wreath, I stuck the leaves and the greenery in between the grapevine on the wreath to hold it in place until I could lay it out how I wanted it. Then I took it one by one off and hot glued it down, and then later went back and added some battery operated lights. This was a long process, but I think I have achieved the vintage look I was going for. And here it is, the Muppet Christmas Carol wreath, featuring Rizzo and Gonzo. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to subscribe and leave a comment for a project you would like to see next. I hope you and yours have a happy holiday.